we'll just have a little chit chat about things and everything else. So you're not working in the office at the minute? You're based at camp?
Yeah, based at home.
How does that work with family life?
It can be busy. It's really busy, particularly when you're on a really important call and the dog starts barking in the background. Yeah, it can be challenging, but it's what we've got to do right now so that the helpline and chatline staff can be in the office.
Completely aside, this won't get put into a bit help tonight. We were doing video calls with Angie, and Angie's husband does nights, and Angie's not quiet. She was on a video call and Glenn came down, not overly dressed, and popped into the lounge. So we held that one against her. So we get going here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so good afternoon. We've got one of our first podcasts here. We're doing with a good friend of ours at Bowen Company, Joanne McMaster, who is the fundraising guru for NSPCC here in Ireland. And what we're doing here today, we're discussing what's going on in the NSPCC world.
Yeah.
Difficult days for everybody, but particularly you guys. We've been associated one way or another with the NSPCC. It is 4 years. We checked in earlier today when we first saw you guys in action at City Hall, harassing everybody, doing your job and getting money out of them, which was in a nice way. And we're very committed to what you guys do because of the subject matter, which is vulnerable children.
Yeah.
And so, Joanne, tell us who and what you are.
So my name is Joanne McMaster. I am the Supporter Fundraising Manager for NSPCC in Northern Ireland, and we are based in New York Road in Belfast. And it's my job to look after the team of fundraisers and to try and bring as much income in as we can for children and young people in Northern Ireland.
Relatively simple brief that sounds, but in today's world, unprecedented times, a phrase I really hate, but it seems to fit. And so obviously that's going to affect you massively because there's going to undoubtedly be, where you deal in the corporate world, there's got to be that nearly selfish aspect for a business to say we've got to sort ourselves out first. Is that, are you sensing that, or is it...
It's tricky. I mean, our corporate partners are fantastic, but it's really difficult times for everybody. And I suppose for companies that have had to close and have had staff furloughed, at the minute they're trying to get back to business as usual for themselves. So whilst plans that we might have had in place with corporate partners have fallen away, we will be looking to try and get some plans.
We were discussing earlier, so the very trendy phrase at the moment is pivot, where you've got to change.
Yeah.
And you were saying you've got to go back to a few basics, and I suggest you've got to be, it's almost like educating your corporate associates as well, because they're going to do things differently if they're going to continue to do what they do. So that I would think that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have we're working at lightning speed at the moment because everything that we had planned and forecasted for the whole of the year has disappeared.
Yeah.
You know,
Literally gone.
Literally gone.
Yeah.
You know, so all of the large participation events.
What sort of events there we talk? So marathon here.
London Marathon, Belfast Marathon, London Landmarks Half Marathon, all Edinburgh, you know, any kind of marathon run. We had a Mourne Mountain Challenge planned for September, and we've had to cancel that as well. So all of those events where you would have large audiences turning up and paying to take part have had to be cancelled.
And in terms of, just in rough figures, what would that sort of equate to for NSPCC, those events?
It depends. It depends. So for the likes of our Viking boat race that didn't take place, the Belfast Marathon, the Mourne Mountain Climb, you know, we maybe would have, and some of the other smaller ones in and around that, you maybe would have been talking maybe £20,000 that those would have raised on their own without anything else, and they're gone. And they're
good seasoned products, as it were, that haven't come around the shine. So we're doing an event with yourselves with the fundraising, and you were talking about the power of four. The four, what's the significance of the four?
So for every young person that comes through the Chatline, it costs us £4 on average for every contact. So whether they get in touch by phone, by email, or come in for a one-to-one chat, on average it costs us around £4.
So that 20,000 equates to 5,000 contacts.
Yeah.
In basic terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously everybody's getting hit one way or another or affected by COVID, not the physicality of the disease, but in terms of what we're all doing now.
Yeah.
You guys are seriously frontline here. So we've got slightly talked on the economics of COVID and how that's affecting the NSPCC. What are you seeing in terms of the most important thing on this, no matter what way you put it, are the children?
Yeah.
So I know we talked, or you spoke to my wife in terms of what's happening there. Did the phones go quiet? So how does it work in terms of?
No, it's been extremely busy. It's been busier than ever on two fronts. It's been busier in Childline for the young people under the age of 19 getting in contact, with all of the worries that COVID has brought. So the top three concerns that young people come through to Childline haven't changed. You know, it's still the number one concern is emotional and mental health. The second is family relationships, and the third is suicidal thoughts and feelings. Those haven't changed, but they're exacerbated by the lockdown, by COVID-19, because, you know, perhaps home isn't a safe place for every young person.
No, I think that's it's really important to because of the lockdown.
Yeah.
We're all moaning because our lives have changed, but somebody's trapped.
Absolutely, and that's a word that lots of young people are using when they're coming through to Childline. They're using the word trapped. They're talking about how it's making them feel, and you know, for young people who maybe would have went to school and that was maybe their safe place, and they had contacts at school, you know, so they could talk to their teacher. Maybe for young people who you know, had support at CAMS, and just their support networks are gone overnight almost, and you know, so the young people are coming through the Childline. So the reasons that they would have contacted us about before are exacerbated, and feeling very lonely. You know,
Childline's is almost like an emergency service.
It's not fine.
And you've got and I never apologise for saying the things I always get quite emotional about. It is the most vulnerable in our society.
Yeah.
There are various people that are vulnerable wherever they're in life, but especially the younger children, it's always hits hard. So going back to the requirement, which is why we're getting involved again, is that, you know, hopefully 8,000 we're going to try and raise a lot of contacts. That's what we're trying to be able to do. In terms of COVID, then obviously it's hit NSPCC in terms of what they're doing fundraising. And I know you've got a couple of other events where you've had to nearly reinvent the wheel and go back to a nearly cottage industry style event. Can you tell us a couple of things that you're going to be doing there?
So what we have planned coming up on going live on the 7th of August is Show Us Your Bake. And it's a baking event where, you know, during lockdown people have maybe been practicing their baking skills, and we're asking them to send us in some pictures to our Northern Ireland Facebook page of the creations that they have made, whether it be sweet or savoury, and to donate £5 to the NSPCC. So that's one of the things we've got coming up, and then in the autumn time we're looking to do a Time to Write event where we're asking people, adults and children alike, to share their thoughts with us. Maybe it's a 100-word short story, maybe it's a poem, and it's about your thoughts and feelings coming through this pandemic. And then of course we will have prizes for the winners for that, and again make a donation to Childline and NSPCC.
And looking at Christmas and Halloween and
looking at Christmas,
any events that you can really do
absolutely.
from home.
Looking at Christmas and Halloween, for Halloween, we'd encourage everybody to either go green for Halloween or get your spook on. So that's a nice fun event, and make a donation. And then for Christmas time, we're thinking about maybe a walking challenge, you know, to get out in a bit of fresh air. We're thinking about maybe a craft product the children can do inside as well.
Building up from there.
Just
because we get quite a few people that listen in England here. Earlier Joanne said bacon, it was baking. So it translates B-A-K-I-N-G as opposed to meat that comes from a pig. Just for those in England, just so we got that. Rather than the bacon challenge, doesn't sound too, you haven't got to do too much And what about the volunteers? Because I know when we spoke early on, so quite a few of your volunteers, particularly, would be polite here, are advanced in years. So they would have their own...
We, at the beginning of lockdown, we had lots of volunteers at Childline in particular who needed to isolate or to shield. So we've seen a significant drop in volunteer numbers, around 30% actually. And then, but what we did have, we were so lucky here in Northern Ireland, because what we did see is The volunteers who were still able to come into the base and to give their shift were given more than one shift.
Right.
So to help out, so that was really, really great. And what we also had then, we had a significant investment in IT equipment in terms of headsets and laptops because we needed some staff to be able to work from home. So we made an investment in that to keep the service going and purely to keep Childline there so that they can still be there for all children.
So the capacity is still there, we're actually a bit of doing, but
And then our staff who are in our schools team delivering the Speak Out Stay Safe programme obviously weren't able to go into schools, so they were redeployed into Childline as well.
Right.
Because we were seeing a huge increase in numbers of young people coming through to Childline for support. We needed additional staff and volunteers in there to man the phones and to be there to listen. So that's been quite good, and even in terms of our website, the amount of hits that our Childline website has been having, because there is peer-on-peer support on there for children and young people as well, that they can look at and get some help rather than speaking to a counsellor all of the time. It's nice to be able to do that.
Brilliant, great. And going back to that phrase pivots, you got to pivot for your fundraising, but the way you guys reacted and got it so that that capacity, obviously you got here in Belfast, but up at 5, I know. How many volunteers will you have at any one point?
We have we normally have just over 100 volunteers across Belfast and Foyle, but we are still at reduced capacity, and we're continually recruiting for new volunteers to come and join us at Childline as well.
Right, well, we'll just finish on a couple of bits if we can. So one is what we're going to be doing on the 24th, because we changed the date again. It's 24th, so we're doing that event where we're embracing in a strange way, came from a different angle. We were doing 4 before 48, and obviously then we got the £4, and so we were referring it to the power of 4 across the board. So we'll be promoting that like crazy, so anybody that's hooked on this podcast, we will be talking to you. No, that's good. Anything you obviously you're going to help us promote that like crazy, which you do brilliantly well there. We've got some young bucks and an old so-and-so running, so that'll work well. We'll get out there and do it, and it's the most worthwhile without a shadow of a doubt. So it's still always, I'm not a very emotional person, but always a subject matter. Your charity always brings it out, so more power to you, Oba.
Thank you so much, Terry, and I have to say, Bell and Companies are absolutely amazing.
Mrs. Bell is, don't know why I'm doing Mrs. Bell. We drive it. Now the team are good, they embrace it. Thank you for that kind of voice. It's good.
You're really, we are so grateful for your support. It's fantastic.
Cool, thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. All right.